Real estate returns come down to people and paycheck before properties. So following the employment trends is one of the most important fundamentals to follow if you are a real estate investor. So really right now, just literally hot off the presses. Hot off the press right now has been the job numbers have just come off, and we're going to take a very deep dive and a look into what's going on in the world of the employment trends, and then also what's happening broken down by a national number and then also by a real estate number. So one of the key things that you always want to do is you want to follow the employment, because people working is one of the key things for people to be paying you rent. People that work, people that earn income, people that pay rent is a very, very good thing. So let's jump into the research. So the research is pointing out to a couple very, very key things that you want to do. The first thing I want to just share with you is may have to get off my soapbox here for just a moment or two, is I'm a firm believer is just the unemployment number. People sit there and they go, the unemployment number is, in my personal opinion, is a lazy metric. It's the easy metric. It's the metric that everybody will sit there and report against. It's the metric that everybody, the big giant headlines in the Globe and Mail and the Financial Post and all the CBC News and everything, everybody reports unemployment. It truly is one of those, lazy metrics in my personal opinion. So a better metric to look at is employment is a better metric to take a look at. Also is the quality of the jobs. Are they full-time or are they part-time jobs? The next is what are people earning? Are wages going up or down or flat? That's another important metric to look. And then also how diverse is the job base? So just unemployment tells one piece of the puzzle. What you want to do is you want to look at the full picture and the full puzzle. So what I've done here for everybody is we've done put this into a framework. I do love myself a good acronym and a good framework, because here's the thing that you can remember frameworks. The more you remember things, the more you will actually implement and take the action going forward. So the first thing of the decade framework is demand. Are people moving in? And we've done a very in-depth presentation and a very in-depth video for you on the population trends. So you want to follow that one as well. Employment trends. Not just the unemployment numbers, but the employment numbers. Are people working? Then after that, you want to talk about the caliber. Are they full-time jobs? Are they part-time jobs? What are the metrics that you want to do? Are people being able to afford the jobs? Are the properties that they're going to be renting in there? How diverse is the job base? This is another key metric, and we're going to hit a topic here head on in this video for everybody about the diversity of a marketplace and and then as well. At the end of the day, research is only that. Research is fantastic, but the most important thing that you want to have from the research is, are you able to take action from it? Because research in and of itself really leads to nothing. It's what you're going to do with it that makes the most amount of sense. All right, gang, let's dive into here. So really, the answer is simple. If you read the news and read the headlines, the job picture got bright and rosy for the month of May. It truly bounced back, but really the picture is uneven. It's where we want to dive into. Everybody was proclaiming that, the recession is over and everything is great and rosy. Everything is wonderful. So make sure you dive deep behind the curtain here, if you will. So really the national growth grew 3% year over year. Truly, if you really think about it, May was one of the first months that there was actually a positive gain in employment for probably the last 5 months. So don't let a 1 month blip determine the entire story and narrative for you. Don't get me wrong. Fantastic. Jobs were added. It beat the forecast. It outbeat projections. That's fantastic news. And then the presentation and the video I delivered before here talking about the Canada slipped into a technical recession. It's probably going to be very, very short-lived. However, the big point and the message I mentioned in that one is 3 of the last 4 quarters have been down, and year over year, the GDP is down. And to be brutally honest, I think on a decade-long basis, I think I mentioned that in that video, and you may want to check out that video where I went a deep dive analysis into the GDP numbers, is I firmly believe that Canada has been limping along for the past decade. We've been significantly underperforming, All right, but here's the key thing. So that's on a national basis. The message that I want to get through is, no different than what we did for the population growth, is not every market is the same, okay? Where Canada has, trimmed their employment forecast, Alberta is actually growing in jobs. There was 104,000 people. 104,000 people were added onto the job market, and that's a 4.1% growth rate over year. So taking the long-term perspective, that's the employment, the number you want to take a look at. Unemployment rate actually dropped on things as well. Now, remember, always look at behind the scenes, look a little bit deeper. You take a look at employment number. Almost 65% of the people, the employment rate has gone up significantly, and also the participation rate is a fantastic number to analyze as well. And truly is the strongest year-over-year employment gains of all the provinces in the country. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not here to, as I mentioned this before, and I will continue to mention this, I'm not here to be a cheerleader for the Alberta marketplace. Rah, 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 sis, goomba, right? I'm not here to cheer on this and be a cheerleader for you. I'm here to share with you the facts. I'm here to share with you what the numbers show. I don't care where the numbers are performing. Really, I do. I care that my investments are going to work hard, because I work very hard on my properties, and I work very hard on this, and I want to make sure that my investments are working hard for me as well. If Ontario was the right place to invest, that's where I would be telling people, that's where I would be advocating based upon the numbers. But right now, there is a clear outlier, and an outlier in a good way, and that outlier at this moment is Alberta. All right, gang. So let's dive into it here. So here's the thing. Breaking it down on a year-over-year basis, okay? Alberta outbuilt every province. It led the country. It was ahead of Ontario, and it had a third of the population. Think about that for a second, is that a province with 1/3 of the population added significantly more jobs. Now, just if you broke that down on a per capita basis, that would just be outrageous on what that would be as there from that number would share. Now, there's been some outliers. There's been some outliers on the positive side. There's also been some outliers on the negative side. Quebec and British Columbia have been really struggling along, and there goes BC, outpunching its weight class for things on the negative side. Now, I know it's made some short-term gains on that number was actually worse. If I would have done this presentation about a month ago, it would be even worse going forward there. So that's one of the key things you want to follow, is making sure that follow the jobs. 104,000 people were added to the workforce. 104,000. Now, put that into think about that for a second. Where you live, think about a population that has 105,000 people. That entire city and that entire center just got a job over the past year. Now, when you factored in this next graph I'm about to share with you in this next chart, on a per capita basis, that is incredible, and that's outrageous. And then the most important thing is when you overlay that over top of the population. So, for example, Alberta added 105,000 jobs. It actually grew in population. Just wait till you see this next chart here that I'm going to share with you as well. And it really comes down to is the following. Think about this for a second. The absorption rate. Now, it's important that you measure how many jobs were created, but you have to overlay that against how many people were added to the population. You have to talk about that. Right now, about 6 in 10 people in Canada are being absorbed into the workforce. That exact same ratio in Alberta is 1.12. So think about that for a second. 105,000 jobs were added. 93,000 people were added to the population. So here's the kicker. Here's the key thing you really want to pay attention to is in Alberta, they are adding more jobs than people are moving in. Now, a lot of people sit there going, well, yeah, the population's growing and everyone on the road, can't even get my parking spot, and the Tim Hortons lineup is so long and all this kind of stuff. And everybody will sit there and go in the next breath, they go, yeah, but everybody's coming here just to be unemployed and they're not working. Alberta, and right now, based upon that metric, a 1.12 absorption rate, is absorbing more workers into the workforce than population is growing. So the employment number is growing faster than the population number. That's really what that's meant to say. Okay, so the key thing you want to measure after that is you also want to talk about the quality of the jobs. Were they part-time jobs or were they full-time jobs? Right. So this is the framework that we want to look at is right here. This one here is the addition of those 105,000 people. The jobs were full-time, high quality employment, right? That's the thing you want to do is so really Alberta grew by 118,000 full-time employment, right? And while the part-time employment fell. So that's actually a high quality metric that you want to keep following as you go forward. Okay, so let's talk about this. Now, the next one is so think about that. We've mentioned a little bit about population. We've talked about the employment, about the people earnings, okay? About the jobs that have been created. We compared that to the population. So all those things are growing. So now the next thing that you want to lead to is, are those people earning more money? Because if wages are stagnant or wages are dropping, that's not actually a good thing. Then you have an underutilized workforce. And then that doesn't mean that you probably over time, you're not even keeping up with inflation with things like that. So that's one of the key things you want to do is you want to measure where the wages are growing. Now, right now, and this is a chart that I've seen and I've shared this many times, is that Alberta has led the country on weekly earnings. Right now, it's at 1371, and it grew by almost 2% year over year. Now, here's the one thing to take a look at is, and as I mentioned, I'm always going to share with you the honest picture of this, is the wage growth in Alberta did not keep up with a national basis, okay? However, it was already the highest. And remember, we're measuring that percentage. When you're measuring a percentage on the highest number, you have to actually have a significant jump in order for that to go forward. That's something that I'm keeping my eye on, and something you should keep an eye on as well is the wage growth number. Okay. Now, here's the thing. One of the biggest critiques and one of the biggest things that knocks against Alberta is that Alberta is just a one-trick pony. It's only based upon jobs that are created in the energy sector. It's the only thing. So the key message I'm going to share with you here, and I'm going to read this one really slowly, and I want you to remember this, is Alberta is energy-led. It's not energy only. What do I mean by that? So, for example, within the GDP of Alberta, about 21% of the entire GDP is relied upon oil and gas. That's why, you hear the old saying is energy, oil and gas stirs the Alberta drink. It 100% does. And if you want to take a look at that further detail of that GDP analysis where I broke down Alberta on that, make sure you check out the video link in the description down below. So 21% of that share is people that is the oil and gas industry. Now, the one thing you want to check out and make sure is, so if it stood to test is, if it's 21% of the GDP, shouldn't a really high percentage of the jobs be involved in the oil and gas? And based upon the latest estimate that's been measured, is only 6% of the workforce is derived in the oil and gas industry. Truly, energy drives GDP, royalties, the high wages, but it's not everybody is not employed on the oil patch. Right? Not everybody, only about 6% of the workforce. And I actually did, when I was doing some of this analysis, I didn't bring it in because it's now a couple years old. It was talking about how many of the new jobs that were created. And the majority of those jobs were not in the resources. As a matter of fact, take a look at this. The current growth is actually coming in healthcare and social services and public administration and transportation and warehousing and manufacturing. Construction and natural resources in Alberta actually shrunk over this time frame as well. So take a look at that. So that just defeats that narrative there. But the key thing is over 107,000 service jobs were created, and the split was breaking down by about 72,000 in healthcare and public services, and about 35,000 for the rest of the population, or rest of the employment number. Okay, now driving right down into Edmonton. Now, I know a lot of you are looking into the Edmonton marketplace. Me too. I'm always got my finger on the pulse of looking at what's going on in Edmonton. So think about this. We've taken a look from a national perspective. Now we're driving down a little deeper into the provincial perspective. And then now we're going to go right down into a regional perspective. And one of the things I'm going to get you to take a look at here is bookmark and make sure you subscribe to the channel, because I've done an incredible dive into the research about major projects that are happening in the Edmonton and area. And I was blown away by just seeing the size, the number of projects and the sheer volume, like the sheer size of each of these projects. There's a forecasted employment jobs that are going to be created just outside of Edmonton in the industrial heartland of 90,000 new jobs in one area still to come. Okay, there's a few of them that are on the works, but the majority of those are still on the books to be created. Think about that: 90,000 new jobs in an area, a small area. Who do you want them renting from you? Well, I sure as heck want them renting from me. Okay, so when we actually take a look and deep dive into Edmonton specifically, Edmonton is a very diverse market, a very diverse marketplace of employment. It's got a very strong healthcare, very strong government. The government is a very big employer there. Education and education services, construction, logistics, retail services. Right now, retail and construction alone and healthcare, thrown on top of that, adds about 40% of the jobs in Edmonton right now. 40%. So everybody sits there and goes, well, it's just an oil and gas town. No, actually 40% of the jobs in the Edmonton area are on those three things: healthcare, construction, and retail. So very big, very diverse marketplace. Now, why is that all important? Why do you want a diverse marketplace of jobs? What you want to have is you want to have many different tenant profiles. The more different tenant profiles you have, the better selection you can have to rent from your properties. And each of those ones have a benefit of what they're looking for. Each one has a different style of property that they're looking for. So healthcare and social, right? There's a very large cohort of people. Government and public administration, like truly, that's in my personal opinion, they're recession-proof payrolls, right? Education, very good tenant-based renting to teachers and administrators, fantastic. Construction and trades, high wages, a little bit cyclical and a little bit more localized, but it's very good cohort to rent to. Transportation and logistics, just each one of those people, each one of those cohorts are a fantastic people to rent to. It's truly not a one-trick pony. It truly isn't. Right. So, okay. So now we've taken a look at the top line. We've started, as I mentioned earlier, we've started at the national level. We've gone down to a provincial level. We've gone down to a regional level, and we've actually broken down into the diversification of each of those as well. Now, here's the thing is, now, after all this is being said, people said that, well, Russ, what do we do with all this information? Like, what do you do with this information? The key thing is you need to take the research and you break it down to executional steps, okay? Make sure that the employment is strong. It's full-time is driving it. The workers are being absorbed faster than the population. It's a broad service-based base of employment. But then you have to also take that information and you have to overlay that against the deal. Okay, that's where the rubber meets the road. So you have the GDP, you have the population, you have the employment. Now it's not just every property will work. So you have to make sure it's not just a blind buy. You are actually doing it by the data and the research backs it up. But you still have to buy and select a really good property. You really do. I'm here to say not every property in Edmonton makes sense. And the key thing that you want to do is which properties in Edmonton make the most sense. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish in this video series for you, is to take that deep dive into it. Eventually, I'm going to come out and I'm going to share with you some investable opportunities, something that makes sense for you. But everybody is unique. But the properties that I'm going to share with you are the same ones I am personally looking at. But more importantly than all of that are the ones that the research backs it up and the underwriting supports it. Okay, so make sure you bookmark this channel, and we're going to go through that. So really, population creates the demand. Employment creates the capacity. Full-time work signals quality. Wages create affordability. And then the diversification creates durability, and then underwriting turns your research into a deal. Step by step by step. Population, employment, what type of job, are they earning money? And then what does the deal specifically look like from there, right? And at the end of the day, always remember that Alberta is energy-led, not energy only. Edmonton, my personal opinion, is one of the best markets in this country to invest in. That's my personal opinion. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to share with you here as follows is if you are looking to invest, if you are wanting to take that next step and you want to build something based upon a strong foundation, reach out for some help. You need help and support. I can't believe the amount of people that I have leaned on and I've stood on the shoulders of giants to help me in my investing career. That's what I'm here to offer to you. So if you need a second pair of eyes on what you're looking to do, maybe you just want to dive a little deeper into the research. Maybe you're having a question about, well, it sounds like there's so much supply coming on the market, Russ. How does that overlay over top of these jobs and things like that? My rents are going to go down. I got a video for you. Just wait till you see that video. I thought I knew what the answer was when I started doing the research. And then when I dove into it even deeper, I'm going, wow. That even shocked me when I did that. So that video is upcoming as well. So here's the point I'm trying to get to is tap the shoulder of people who have been there before you. Tap the shoulder of people who have been down this road. If you're struggling or you're just not sure what the next steps are and you need a private consultation, a judgment-free consultation, and a second pair of eyes of what you're doing, in the show notes or in the description below, make sure you check out. There will be a link that you can put a time in my calendar, and I would be honored to help you move forward. Okay, gang? With all that being said, have yourself a wonderful day. Bye for now.